Hello, everyone. Welcome to Progressive HR Live. Thank you for joining us today. Our live today is Technology and the Future Operating Model, and we are with Jesse Schofer, the founder of Stacked. Jesse has huge transformation experience and years of HR leadership, as well as scaling unicorns in Europe. And Stacked is a simple and unbiased database to help you discover the right HR tech for your business. So if you have not already, go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you are streaming from. I'm Corinne Woodward-Hollebeck, your host today. And again, I'm with Jesse Schofer, founder of Stacked. How are you, Jesse?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, everyone. Here I have an icebreaker for you. Since we're going to be talking about technology today, what word comes to mind when you think of our technology landscape right now? And while you answer that, I am going to go ahead and go into our audience and introduce you all to each other. All right. So, hello, we've got Afsan Khan. Hello, how are you? Sean Wig. Oh, everything's not pushing here. There we go. You know what? It looks like we have a completely new platform here on StreamYard. This is completely different than I've seen before, the way that these introductions are coming up. So this is very interesting. Caught me off guard for a minute. And Colleen Jensen says, hi, from here from Frisco, Texas. All right. Again, what word would you describe our technology landscape right now? And Jesse, did you want to add to that, or should we go into the first question?
Oh, I mean, the technology landscape. Oh, I'm going to say it is large. Is that an okay word to use?
Yes, it is. And see, I was going to say vast. It's vast.
That's a better word. Better than large. Big, a lot. There's lots of it.
So, audience, we're going to be talking about technology and the future operating model today with Jesse Schofer, founder of Stacked. If you have not already, go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments, and we'll get into our first question for Jesse. So, Jesse, I'd like to know, from your perspective, how is technology reshaping the way organizations structure and operate their HR functions today? And where do you see the biggest opportunities for transformation?
It's a good question. How is technology reshaping organizations, I think, is the interesting part of this question, because how is technology shaping organizations? I think it should be the other way around. So we are very technology driven right now. I think that tech companies and people with innovation and the investment there are building tech for business, especially in the HR space. They're pushing out ideas. They're saying this is how we're going to operate. Here is the tech. I'm not sure that's the way we should be doing it. I think there should be a little bit more of a here's how we want to operate with tech, and here's how we believe tech can help us and help that shape the technology that's being built. I don't think there's enough connection point there, and I do see some technology, is being built not with the end user in mind. It's kind of like what people think it should be built, but isn't what we potentially need, or it's pushing us down a pathway that we don't really want to go down, where there's less human interaction and you don't get the value of the human as part of things. So my perspective is, it's reshaping organizations dramatically. It will continue to. I think what we're not going to see is the benefits of all of the tech until we really reshape how we actually design and build how we operate. And that's why we talk about the operating model, because you can't just slap HR on top of a broken operating model, or operating models that used to work but won't in the future with the tech that we have coming. So yeah, it's an important topic to talk about, because I think we're all about let's go head in on tech, let's do the transformation. I do think there is a step before that. I think there's a step to hang on a minute, let's shape the way we want to work, let's shape the organizations we want, and then let's make sure the tech actually supports that rather than the other way around. So I'd like to see a little bit more business and tech founders getting together and shaping this a bit more together. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely good tech out there, don't get me wrong. There's people doing it well, but I do think that there needs to be more consideration for how we actually operate as a whole before we just throw tech in.
Yeah, and I think we tried. I think we tried during the pandemic with remote work, and I mean, some of us are still trying, and work from anywhere, as well as really putting into action the 4-day work week. And
Mhm.
there's a lot more that, I mean, we're still operating in the Ford era. And so I think a lot of us have very tried, but it's really so hard to kind of break through that. I mean, what are your recommendations? I mean, where do we need to go with this operating model? What's your perfect idea of what our operating model would look like?
I mean, perfect idea of an operating model for me, especially if we're just looking at HR. I mean, if you can look at the whole business, but if you look at HR, it's taking proven ways of operating, lean ways of operating, efficient ways of operating from that already exist. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't think that teams have adopted a lot of the ways of working that work in other parts of the business. For instance, doing more product-led change programs in the way that they operate. You can take portfolio functions across, to prioritize and align work with the business and strategy and make sure your investment goes into the right place and have transparency. There's little things that you can do to, facilitate that function being, let's say, operating more efficiently, but also more effectively for the business, and improve its standing in the business as well. So what I'd like to see is more of us thinking. I'd like to think about it as like a front end and a back end. So front end is like the customer service front, and I think we should treat HR teams as customer service front ends on one side, and then you've got the back end that is the change engine, the data, the infrastructure, the tech, the processes, the policies that can be utilized on the front end with the business, right? So you're a customer service function and you should be providing a service, and your first level support might be tech in the future. It might be that you go into your AI and you can ask it questions, but you're going to need human interaction at some point. And the best customer service is always with a human, not with a bot. So designing this kind of, it's very high level if I say the perfect thing for me, but I always imagine it in this way that you have front end and back end, and then it becomes a little bit clearer what you're trying to do. So yeah, that's some high level things. Borrowing, don't recreate the wheel, like borrow from what we know works and apply it in the HR context and make sure that we build with, tech in mind. I think that's where we need to go.
Thanks, Jessie. I appreciate that. So you were just talking about data and using the data and be strategic with data. Many HR leaders struggle to turn data into meaningful insights. What should they look for in HR tech solutions to ensure they're making the informed strategic decision? I mean, that is after they get their processes and their operating models in place, right?
I mean, that's always the thing with HR. It's like everywhere I've worked, the first thing I'm hired for, they're like, we need a dashboard. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Do you need a dashboard? Or like, we don't need a dashboard. We need insights. We need contextualized insights. We don't just need like a number. We need like to understand what's going on in the business, not just in the HR side, but like across the business, and bring it together to make informed decisions. And I think we want to have this perfect dashboard with all the numbers on it. And it's like, let's just get the numbers we can as quickly as we can to give us indicative, directional ideas of what's going on. Even if your data is not perfectly clean, note that. Make sure that you at least have something going on. Take the data you have and put caveats, but you can usually see directional information, or not all your data is bad. So firstly, just do what you can with the least amount of resources to get some numbers if you don't have anything. I think that's the first step. Second step is, like you said, getting your operating model, but also your data infrastructure and tech infrastructure set up in a way that there is as minimal manual handling of data as possible. So if I'm onboarding into the business, I enter my data as an employee, a new starter, I enter my data. No one else should have to touch that. It should just be in a system, and it is from me to the system, and that's it. No one in HR should be touching or playing with that data or adding it in or manually transferring it from system to system, because then you have the chance of error, like high chance of error. And usually there is high chance of error. So, getting these processes where things are automated, data handovers are reduced. And, you don't want process handovers where, something changes hands from this system to this system or this person to that person. That's where you get problems. So, with processes, you want to limit how many steps, if you can, of data transfer. But of course, you should understand what kind of data your business wants to see. So working with the executive, be like, what is important to our business? Because you can measure everything. Like, you can literally measure everything. You should not measure everything. You should measure what you can get. Like I said, get what you can get it fast, and get directional understanding. with caveats. I think it's like setting the expectation, being able to communicate. We have this data. We know there's stuff missing, but here's directionally what we see from it. It's better than having nothing. Be like, well, we can't do anything. Like, what do you want to see? Someone trying, or do you want to see nothing? So I think it's, having that, get your foundations right, understand where the data is going, understand the flow of data, who owns the data, who's updating the data, centralized, data, you do need to have a master data kind of plan, like what fields are what in what system. They need to match. You need to have centralized like attributes for your business. Don't talk about cost centers and departments and then finance is talking about some other number and it's all the same thing, but you've called it 5 different stuff. Like that stuff doesn't make sense. So, centralize, get a clean understanding across the business, align your strategy to what numbers you need to see for your business, which will be different. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. Measure what you can and then, mature over time and work on it over time. Tech can do a lot these days. There's systems now, you hook them in, they pull all the stuff in, and you can literally like ask it questions. It's an AI. It'll like take all the data in and be like, hey, what's our turnover rate? It will bring you the turnover rate, but it'll also contextualize the answer and be like, well, here's the turnover rate. Here's where I got the data from. And here's other relevant metrics that could be interesting. And here's kind of like the analysis, the insights, because you don't want the turnover rate. You want the insights that gives you about the business. You want to know if that's good or bad. You want to know if that's impacting other stuff. So I think now there's tech that can actually take us from metrics through to insights, through to decisions, informed decisions a lot faster than we ever could before. And it's democratized. It's not going to be in the hands of a people analytics team anymore. It's not their data. They're the ones getting the data in a dashboard for you. They're the ones who are analyzing the data. That's going to be probably done by AI in the future, let's be honest, to some degree. There will be someone orchestrating that tech, yes. There will be someone looking at the data and the guardrails and the compliance. But at the end of the day, leadership's going to have that data. And leadership's the one who needs the access to it. So we need to enable the business to have access to these insights so they can make informed decisions in the moment. And that's what I think tech's going to do. It's going to make it way more accessible. It's not going to sit behind closed doors. We're not going to be building dashboards for months and months and months. And we're actually going to get insights to help us make decisions faster. But yeah, like I said, you can start somewhere and you can mature over time.
So you bring up a lot of things that I wanted to ask you about.
Sorry, throwing it all in there.
No, I mean, like, it's a lot to unpack, and it's a complete change. And I think that there's a handful of HR professionals that are there. There's a handful of HR professionals that want to be there, but are being held back by something, whether that's their own leadership, whether that's the own problems of the profession. Because I know that there's still a lot of HR leaders out there still doing onboarding with paper folder packets. And they're putting the data down in the paper folder packet, and they're taking the paper folder packet back to their desk, and they're opening it up, and then they're entering it into their payroll or the HRIS. And then there's tons of mistakes being made, and it's so much easier, but it's harder. It's so much easier to have the employee do that, but it is harder to let go. We have to let go of some of these things. And it doesn't mean that we're skirting our work. We're trying to be more strategic than administrative.
Yeah.
And going back to what we're talking about with that, the insights is, gosh, that sounds kind of big and kind of scary, but I think the way to approach it is curiosity with it. And Jeremy just jumped in really quickly, and I want to put this comment up here. Great points. While we're in this intermediary phase, the lack of the true master data makes the pressure on HR to produce meaningful metrics and dashboards unable to be met in many cases. Yeah.
Totally. Jeremy, I have been there. I've been the one to come in and been like, you ain't getting no insights because this data is so bad. Like, you're not getting anything. And I think that's okay, because it's about setting expectations with the business. If the business want the data, they will invest in you needing to get the data, and they have to. And it's like, we know what you want. We want to get it for you. We need the time to get it because we have HR debt. We have a hangover of poor building from the past, whatever it is. You have to accept it at some point that there hasn't been the time or the investment, or there's been too many priorities and this hasn't been the one to get the attention, and it needs to get attention. Operating model, like how you operate which means how data passes, how processes are, it's usually forgotten about in the HR space, right? Because everyone's building too fast and they're focused on the product, they're focused on the output, like we're going to have a comp framework or we're going to have a this. And it's like, but there's all the back end that I talk about, like this whole network of foundations that is missing usually, or that never needed to be there because the function didn't have the same responsibilities. Now the expectation and responsibilities are going up and up and up, but the function itself hasn't been invested into to enable that. And I think that's where it takes the strong and courageous leadership from HR side to really push that agenda and say, look, I want to get there. We're on the same team. I want these insights as much as you want these insights. This is what I need to get there, and have that conversation. And that's what I did when I was in the business. I was like, we need to prioritize this project for the next 3 to 6 months. Yes, we're going to do other things, but this is going to be a core. If you want these insights and you want it accurate and you want the data clean, we've got to focus on it. And the decision was made, we're going to focus on it. So, I think it's about, you start where you are. If you're at that point, you start at that point. If you're a bit further down the train, then, you're going to have a different priority and you're going to be able to put different things forward. I also think it's not HR's job to save the business from itself. The executive also need to decide it's a priority. And if they're like, that's not a priority and we're not investing in that, you can only do so much. I think it's just making sure that you have I got asked a question actually at a keynote last week. They said, what do I do if, they don't want to do what we're proposing, even though we know it's the best thing? I was like, just get them to agree on an options paper. Option A, do nothing. Here are the consequences. Option B, do something. Here is the cost. Once you get them to actually agree to do nothing and accept the consequences, usually they're like, oh, because they see it in their face. They're actually actively saying no to investment is actively saying yes to doing nothing and a consequence. And I think connecting that helps, but it still may not change some people's minds. But at the end of the day, if they're running the business like that, you can only do so much. And you can always come back to those decisions in the future. So I think, it's about doing your best, having proactiveness, being curious, like you said, Corinne, having this kind of, I would say, having the courage to put forward and, be like, set expectations and be transparent about where you're at and what you need. And then hoping that the business support that, like, the other executives.
And so I was going to ask you a question about what you think the first step is for someone to be proactive in this new approach. And you answered that question. So my next question is, So my next question is, my next question is, you talked about HR debt, and you also have posted a lot on LinkedIn about HR debt. And so can you explain a little bit what you mean by HR debt for our audience?
Sure. I mean, it's the level of things that haven't been done. It's the amount of debt you haven't paid back. It's the processes you never got to. It's the automations you never put in place. It's the everything that never got done because there was too many other priorities. And it's okay to have some debt. Everyone's got it in their personal life. Everyone's got it in every part of the business. There's things that aren't done perfectly. That there is a level that a business can sustain while being efficient, and there's a level that becomes too much. And this is where you start to see, like what Jeremy pointed out earlier, some businesses just don't even have clean data and you mentioned they don't even have, they've got onboarding manually in paper form and all this kind of stuff, right? Like that's stuff that is going to it's not going to change unless it's prioritized to change. And so you have to accept as a business a level of debt, a level of stuff that doesn't get done. At some point, it's going to have an impact and a consequence. And at that point, you need to decide, do we need to worry about that debt or not? So, of course, as you build, you should limit it, and you can do a lot of things to future-proof yourself from having less and less impact. Because trust me, transformation, changing people later is a lot harder. If you don't have how everyone's like, we're running a business and you're growing and there's no kind of policy on who gets promoted and you kind of just wing it. And then suddenly you want to put in a promotion process. Everyone's like, what are you doing? I don't understand this. Why did that person get promoted 6 months ago? That's not fair. Like there's all these problems, right? If you just had a process from the beginning, people would be like, oh, that's our process. Giving something or taking something away or changing something is so much harder in business. And it's not just the process debt. It is the emotional, human change debt that comes with changing stuff. And that's what I talk about HR debt. Like you don't want too much of it. And trust me, all the businesses out there that have been around for years have a lot of it because, like I said, HR never used to have to do what they do now. So it wasn't built to do what the expectations are, which means they have a whole bunch of debt they didn't even know they were going to have, because now they've got to transform from what it used to be to what it needs to be. And you've got this whole change program and debt to fix. The new businesses have a little bit of a head start. They're a bit more agile. They're building on the new way of working. They can choose to have less and less debt than the businesses that have been in business for a long time. So they're going to have a cheaper and easier way to transform than the businesses that are bigger, larger, more traditional. So that's what I mean.
Thank you. I used to get asked the question a lot because I did work with a lot of startups. The question was, what number of employees when we bring in HR? And I said, number one. So when you are either founder and then you're thinking about hiring, the next person to bring is HR, just to put everything in place. And they're like, well, shouldn't I bring in a CFO? And I'm like, well, you need to hire the CFO. You need to hire people. Once you bring in your first employee, not another co-founder, but another employee, that's when you need to have HR support and HR process.
I agree with
so
that.
I'm going to go.
I would say these days you would even do better with a fractional experienced person to come in and help set foundations. I feel like that's the way you can do it without having to have someone like permanent in the business who's going to be there forever, from day one. But yeah, I agree with you. It needs to be thought about very early on.
And there's so many wonderful fractional HR experts out there. There's so much opportunity, and there's just so much of resources for the companies now, but they still are not aware. I guess a lot of them aren't very aware of that.
I feel like they're aware, they just haven't got over themselves enough yet. I'm just going to say that. They're like, I can do this alone. It's like, good on you, but no one's an expert at everything. Like, just get some help. Just get some help. If you can afford to invest into something, invest into that early. It will help you tenfold back into the future.
So Jeremy has another comment for us, and then also Georg has a comment as well. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Ish, technical debt has always been a thing. If we're assigning HR to all of these other types of debt process, etc., how does HR conceptually pay that back to the organization, especially given all their competing priorities? Oh, that's a wonderful question. What do you think?
It's called prioritization. I mean, you said it. Competing priorities, what's important to the organization, and that's the conversation that needs to happen. That's when I talked earlier about portfolio functions being very, very helpful for prioritization in people teams. They're used in transformation, they're used in other parts of the business. It's basically a stack rank list, a list of everything you need to do, and there is a reason and a balancing of the benefit to the business of working on something, and you assess and you agree at the executive level where the investments or where the time for people or the money or the whatever resource goes into the business. So you need to decide if you've got a limited resource, which is everyone's time and how many people you have. That's a conversation that needs to happen at the exec level and say, right, we're going to put X amount into tech debt, HR debt to clean up these things and build this. That means we're not going to do these other stuff, but it's going to help us in the future. And that's a decision that has to be made. I think people try to do it all at once. They're like, well, I have all these priorities and I have to clean up all of that stuff. And it's like, no, you've got it. That cleaning up is a project. That cleaning up is changing the business. It's probably changing processes. It's probably implementing systems. It's big stuff. It's infrastructure stuff. That's why the operating model needs to make sense, because you're literally going to change how people operate in the business and in your teams and in your HR. It might even change how your team structure is, so these are the things that need to be considered, and they are topics that need to be discussed and they need to be made transparent. Just like in marketing, they're not just given unlimited funds. They're like, well, we're going to do these things. Here's our list of stuff. Here's the investment. Here's the campaigns we're going to do. And here's the return on investment that we're going to see. We've got to do the same in HR. We've got to be way more strategic about how we get those priorities ticked off. And if they're like, well, we want to do it all, you go, great, where's my money? Give me some people. Let me hire some consultants. Let me, there's always a couple of things you can change. How much money you have, the quality and the time. Like, there's always a couple of things you can pull around. And if you just make it very, very clear, we either do it or we do nothing. There's options. You've got options. Don't have to do it. Here's your consequence. And I think it's being we have to be so more transparent, so more strategic in how we communicate and how we get buy-in with executives. So the people team can actually be like, right, our plan, what we work on every day is supported by the exec. They know what we're doing. They know why we prioritized it. And we all believe it's the best thing for the business. Then you're going to get a lot more traction than not, right? So I feel your pain, Jeremy. There's only so much we can do. And that's what I'd suggest, right? You can at least try. It's not always received well. It's not always received well. I got to be honest. But we got to be brave and courageous. And that's part of our role, is to just if you're an executive or if you're in leadership in HR, it's part of the deal, delivering bad news sometimes. We need more money to fix things.
And my LinkedIn friend, Sam O'Neill, would say, and you have to have courage to do this.
You do. And you got to be, you're not, HR is not we have to be liked by everyone and we're the friendly, smiley, happiness officer. No, it's the most strategic, in my opinion, the most strategic function now, the most important function in all businesses these days is the people function. It is absolute. Organizational success relies on the people in the business and how well that function operates. Because if that function doesn't operate properly and it cannot deliver, things don't go well. We've seen that. We've seen how it doesn't go well. It literally affects human happiness, burnout, people's health. There's so much wrong with how we do business these days. We just need to put the priority in the right place as a business, and it will pay off.
And we have to have belief in ourselves.
Yeah,
I think that's extremely important as well, is that we have true courage, true belief in ourselves, conviction, and confidence.
Yeah. Come in there with some bang.
So Georg, again, I hope I am pronouncing that name correctly. Jesse, like the HR debt, and Biz knows it from IT and tech debt, talking in biz terms helps getting managers to understand and buy in.
It absolutely does.
Yes.
We got to talk the talk. We got to walk the walk. We have to do everything we can, really, to be seen as business functions. HR is a business function. The fact that we say we're not business is ridiculous, but we do not help ourselves. We do not talk in business language. So I totally agree. We got to do that. I totally agree with that statement too.
Yeah. Okay. I'll pop it back up. So, right. AI becomes commodity so fast that people becomes the differentiating factor going forward. I mean, yes, there's getting more and more canyons between all businesses because of their adoption and adaption of AI and their curiosity and their willingness. So, moving it back to tech, with so many HR tech solutions on the market, what are the top 3 criteria HR leaders should consider when selecting a tool that aligns with their business needs and their long-term strategy?
Oh, I mean, the top 3 criteria is always business specific, right? So top 3 criteria for me with tech is, does it deliver on your needs that you have defined at the beginning? So top 3 is very hard because for me, there's just one thing. It needs to support the business strategy. So coming back to our prioritization, we're not buying tech because it's cool and shiny, because someone jumped into our DMs and tried to sell us something. We're much more strategic about our tech decisions. I think being informed about the market is important. Understanding what tech is out there, understanding competitive products, understanding what's new on the market. That's something interesting. You can do that by just browsing the Stack database, right? There's hundreds of products in there. You can just see what's out there. It's quite cool. That's one thing. But when you're actually choosing tech for business, it's a procurement activity, right? It is procurement as a profession. Let's be honest, people have a job and it is procurement. They buy stuff for business. So now HR need to do procurement on top of all the other things, right? So the first thing you got to do when you're starting any kind of, you're going to buy something into the business, you're going to acquire something like that, is always make sure that it is a priority for the business. You're in the TA team, you're in recruitment, I want to get a new whatever AI note-takey thing. Is that the best return on investment for the effort and the money for the business right now? It might be the coolest thing in the world. It might also improve things, but is it the best use of money and resources from the business to do that particular project right now? I don't know. Well, you should know because you've got your prioritized portfolio. You have your list of agreed priorities for the business. You know what the outlook is for the 6 to 12 to 18 months of the business. You know where you need to get to, and you know if note taking is going to move the needle, or if it's actually not note taking, it's actually AI onboarding, because that's way more important for the business, and that's where you have the biggest bottlenecks. And so we're actually going to invest there instead, and we're going to put the other projects on hold. So for me, the top 3 criteria isn't anything to do with the tech. The tech itself, you're going to define the criteria based on what the business needs. It's going to align with the business strategy, and it's going to be prioritized. Those are the top 3 things you need to do when you're selecting tech, because otherwise you don't know what you're optimizing for. If you don't know why you're getting the tech, you don't know what to assess, you don't know what to differentiate between the tools, because you don't know what you're actually buying it in for. You've got your own personal preference, right? But what does the business actually need is what you should be looking for. And that's going to align to where every business is going in their context. So I do believe we jump the gun, we don't plan enough, we don't think about it enough when it's like, oh, shiny. Yes, AI, I want that. And that's fun and that's great. But I know people who get all the way down the end. They're like, this is the best tool ever. They go to get the sign off from finance. And they're like, no. You know why? Because no one knew it was a priority. No one knew you were doing it. No one knows why this thing is now on their lap to sign off, because it wasn't on your priority list. No one, it's not transparent. They're like, we've got so much other stuff to do. Why are we buying this thing? Why are we adding this thing to our, so it's like, it's important for you, but it's not important for the business. So we have to make sure that starts first. So I know that's not really an answer to the question, but I think it's the most
absolutely is an answer. It's a wonderful answer.
Yeah.
No, but I would say that you're spot on. You're spot on with that, because it has to relate to the business. I mean, I have the experience, even though I'm not yet still a practitioner, I still involve myself in a lot of the HR practice and the HR function, and I talk to HR teams all the time. And it is so hard to do our daily things that we have looking for tech, for buying tech, because we are getting bombarded, especially in the US, by the latest tech vendor. You have no idea. I literally had a DM from somebody the other day, and they're like, this is the greatest, the newest thing, and this is the most wonderful thing, and here's the excerpt from our CEO. And so I took a half an hour to 45 minutes out of my day, because I thought it was, oh, this is really cool. And I dug in, and I saw that the founder had posted that it took him a month to create this thing. And I'm like, I don't want to buy this. I don't want to buy something that somebody just decided they were going to throw together and use custom GPT from OpenAI. But it caught me, and I had to step away. It was a distraction. And I found out it wasn't even.
The distractions are real. We've got distractions everywhere these days, in business, in our inbox, in LinkedIn. And the one thing I kind of like about Europe, it's a bit annoying sometimes, but GDPR, you can't go onto a site and they can't just get all your data and start spamming you, right? In the US, it's there's businesses that go viral, on LinkedIn about how they capture people's data, and you can get lead gen and cold outreach emails and all this kind of stuff, right? It's crazy difference in culture and just regulatory environment. But I didn't get as many. You still get it. Trust me, you still get it, but it's just not the same as the US, right? I can imagine how much comes through. And that's why I also found it stacked, because I was like, we need some control over what we want to see. There needs to be a way to, if I'm interested in tech and I'm interested to explore the market, I don't want 400 sales pitches in my inbox. And I also don't want to be in a sales call and a demo call if I'm not interested to buy yet, because then they'll attach. Even if you're just interested, they'll attach on you forever. Trust me, they'll never let you go. That's their job. Their job is to try and make a sale, right? We can't be mad at them. It is their job. But your job can be also to be I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go and search and see what's out there and stay informed. And that's why I created the database. Centralize what's out there, find it without being bothered. We capture no personal data. We don't track you. We don't get your we're not getting your nothing, right? We're not jumping in down your throat and then being here's a sales pitch. It's in your control. So I think
when we're trying to ask a question, and it's horrible. It's horrible, and that's a huge problem right now. It's a big pain point for human resources, especially when they're exploring tech. So thank you.
Yeah.
We had a question or a comment from Colleen that I wanted to bring up, and Colleen's comment. Procurement for systems with AI, especially in the people space, requires a close look at privacy policies, and we need to be mindful of how the data will be used by the company providing the software.
I
Very
mean,
true.
Colleen, you belong in Germany because that is right. We're very, very heavily regulated here. No, that is exactly right. There's so much tech out there. Like part of our job in HR is to assess risk and assess privacy and, get your IT teams involved, early on, especially if you're looking at AI, understand your policies on it, get legal involved, understand what the grounds are, what's possible, and that's part of your assessment criteria when you go into assessing all these tools. So AI is great, and I think it's fantastic. It's just we just got to tick the boxes. We've got to make sure we go through the process properly, and there is a way to do it, and there is a way to use AI while still maintaining let's say regulatory and legal compliance. It's just we need to know that we need to do that. We need to know those steps, and we need to involve other people and other professions in the business to just be on board so it's clear for you, because I'm not an expert in that. None of us are experts at everything. Just get them involved. Hey, I need a one-pager on what I need to consider when it comes to compliance, and I think you're completely right. People forget about it, but it's extremely important, especially even more so now with AI.
So we have about 10-ish minutes left, a little less than 10 minutes left on the conversation. I want to make sure I ask you this question, and then we can either take some more questions or we can summarize. So looking ahead, what emerging HR tech trends do you believe will have the most significant impact on the future operating model? And how can organizations start preparing now?
That's a big question. Trends that I will believe will have the most significant impact on the future operating model. So the trend that I'm seeing, it's also kind of what we want to some degree, like this reduction of administrative work. We don't like, no one really likes admin. At least I don't like admin. So this automating of repetitive mundane tasks and kind of taking those out of the hands of great example, ticketing. First level support tickets. I don't know how much leave do I have left? I can't access my HR system. Where do I find my policy? What is the policy on parental leave? I don't know, whatever questions that come to people operations teams, they're going to be, like I said, this front end piece that I was talking about at the beginning about the operating model, this front end is now going to change. And I think the front end model is going to change more drastically than the back end model of HR. So the back end model that we talked about is change projects, like the HR, the systems and this kind of wheel of processes and getting all the new stuff. At the end of the day, they're projects. You're still going to run projects. You're still going to run them probably agile with Kanban. You're still going to, get feedback from the business. You're going to run projects. It's going to be the output of those projects that changes the front end interaction with the business. So the biggest change in the people operating model is going to be how HR interacts with the business and how they enable organizational success. Because right now there's a lot of manual administrative topics that we handle in HR and people don't see the value in them. They can be very, very easily automated and done by AI, a lot of it across the board. And we don't need experts necessarily anymore either, but we need people who can execute and orchestrate technology, right? We need people who can orchestrate the tech, who can design, who can make the tech do what we need it to do. That's going to be a skill set for the future in HR, and design and make sure that humans are optimized. So I believe the front end part, how we interact, how we serve the business in a human capacity and a tech capacity is going to be the biggest change. And that's the biggest trend that we see, right? All of these mundane tasks, the sourcing, the job description writing, the onboarding forms, all of this stuff, the tickets, answering all the tickets in the system, automated, first level support, knowledge-based access, all of this stuff that someone previously would have to actually answer and do themselves manually is going to be taken over. And I believe I believe there's going to be roles in the future. Maybe I'm wrong, but all of this AI requires knowledge, contextual knowledge to your business. How is it going to answer the question, what is our parental leave policy, if we don't have a parental leave policy? It's not going to be able to answer the question. So it's going to be someone's job to manage the knowledge that it is accurate and up to date for AI to ingest, to give answers. So there will be different jobs in HR in the future. It'll be very interesting to see how we manage knowledge bases that feed AI. It'll be very interesting to see how we orchestrate tech, how we design the tech, how someone manages, and someone has to, it's just, tech isn't just going to go make itself work. It's someone has to make sure the tech works and manage that day to day, update it, change it. So interesting stuff coming. But that's where I think the biggest change is. And the trends that we're seeing, right? I mean, I think everyone can see that, but yeah, I'm excited.
Finally, right? I think I'm definitely saying finally it's happening. It's happening.
Let's get rid of the admin and make space for human interaction that adds a lot more value. Like, let's not do tickets. Let's do, like, make sure leaders have the support they need and make sure that, you know, people feel welcomed and brought into the business and they have a good relationship with others, and, you know, just like bring the human connection back to where it's lost. Like, we're so busy doing admin that we can't even like build relationships. So
So we have about 4 minutes left. So I'm just going to quickly kind of summarize and go into our outros. Everyone, please follow Jessie Soffer on LinkedIn and check out the Stacked database. And this is super simple URL, stacked.tech. So that's stacked, STAKKD.tech. And April 9th, we are going live with Guru Sethupathi, who's the CEO and founder of FairNow. And FairNow is a technology solution that helps companies ensure that their AI solutions are compliant and well-governed. That LinkedIn Live event page is not up yet, but if you do want an invite when I get the invite page up, please go ahead and add a yes into the comments now. And oh, I see Bennett. Bennett is helping me with working with Guru. He said, Colleen Jenkins, yes, many AI regulations have highlighted HR and TA as high risk. Thus, bias auditing and vendor risk assessment are crucial to the procurement of AI.
Totally agree, Bennett. We also have to have a chat, Bennett. We've got to connect. Just throwing that out there.
I'll make sure that you both connect.
Yeah.
And we have a comment from Georg. Since we are entering the age of multi-AI agents, besides tech being able to do the task and the easiness of getting it up and running, isn't the ability of any AI tech to interact with other AI tech, agent to agent, a key sourcing criteria, and building as well as managing, orchestrating AI agents a key task in HR capability?
I mean, yeah, I agree. There's going to be like this AI to AI agent thing is very interesting. I think that's going to be, I mean, again, contextual to your business, contextual to your maturity. That could be a requirement in your assessment. Absolutely, the skill set in HR will change. The capabilities need to change. So if you're in HR, you're probably listening right now. Like, let's do this. Let's upskill together. Let's learn about it. Let's start working out, what does tech orchestration mean? What is interesting for you? You know, like, start thinking about, if you could imagine a utopia world with AI, like what skill sets would you need? Start focusing on it. Like, let's have the conversation, reach out to me, have a chat. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And I know, like, I'm super excited for agentic AI, but I'm more excited for AGI. You know, I've been waiting for AGI for a long time. I know most of us have, that are like very much in the nerdy, geeky people that are into the whole AI thing from the beginning. This has been, we haven't thought that we were going to get there. And now it's just it's a reality. It's a reality knocking on your doorstep.
Now it's going to be everywhere. We're not going to be able to stop it. That's why it's so important that we design the organizations and the tech supports the design, the human side of what we want to do. I don't want, at the moment tech is pushing everyone else. It's like, we got to balance it somehow. Got to balance it.
Got to breathe and think.
I can't breathe. I need to breathe. So we got to breathe for it.
There we go. Last comment before we sign off from Colleen. Jessie Soffer, kudos for creating Stacked. I can see the value already. Unbiased tech info is almost impossible to find these days. Nice work, and looking forward to seeing you grow.
That's very kind, Colleen. Thank you. That's the goal. That's the goal, that it's unbiased, that it's easy, that it supports you, and you don't have to worry about like people jumping down your neck. So thank you for that. It's really kind. Glad it's valuable.
Yeah. So I encourage everyone who is on the live stream now and watching the replay to please follow Jessie and to check out the Stack database at stackeddeck.tech. That is STAKKD.tech. Super easy. All right, Resourceful Humans, thank you so much for joining us today. We know that you're very, very busy. We've been talking about how busy you are, but we still appreciate you taking your time out for the day to join Jessie and I on this conversation. Jessie, thank you so much for joining me and just
I'm glad we made it.
All of your knowledge. Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun, and I'm so glad we made it here after our chat last year. I was like, we have to do this. And then, I'm glad we made it. And thank you so much for having me again. And to everyone who asked questions, connect with me. I'm happy to chat as well. So I'm always looking for new connections.
Awesome. And you post you're completely active on LinkedIn.
I post a lot. I'm sorry, everyone, if it's too much, but I would love if you're there and you find it interesting. We should all just connect. So
I think that's also kind of a pain point for HR too, is finding somebody that they connect with, that they can have great comments on their LinkedIn post.
Like an interaction and like a feedback and thought exchange, I think is so great. And there's so much there on LinkedIn, I have to say. And I try not to do the blah. I try to be like, hopefully it's invaluable. So you guys you have to always tell me, please tell me, get in my DMs, be like, that was awful. Be valuable. Also with the product, like you think there's something I can do with the product, the database, like tell me. I think that, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to, connect with others, make sure we add value in the world. So that's why I love LinkedIn as well. That's how we met, Corinne. So we can only thank LinkedIn.
Yes, Leanne, LinkedIn is a great opportunity for everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody, we're signing off now. Jessie, if you could stay in the studio really quick to debrief. Everybody have a wonderful day. And thank you again, Resourceful Humans. We'll see you April 9th with Guru Sethapathy.
Bye.